Welcome to today's 5-minute study in the book of Joshua. We're still in Joshua chapter 10. Today we begin reading at verse 16. Now this chapter contains the account of the battle against the Amorite Kings. That's what verse 16 says. Now the 5 kings had fled and hidden in the cave at Makkedah. All right, you remember there's the coalition of Amorite kings in southern Canaan. They've seen what Joshua has done, and they form a coalition combining their military forces to oppose the Israelites. They feel like that gives them the advantage. Now, in this battle, the Israelites are not besieging a city, as was the case with Jericho and with Ai, but rather these 5 Amorite kings have combined their forces, and they have come out to meet the Israelites. But first they attacked Gibeon. Remember, Gibeon had made a treaty with the Israelites, had become in submission to them, and so the Amorite kings attacked them for their, what they consider, treachery. But Joshua brings the Israelites on a forced march, and with the miraculous intervention of the Lord, he defeats completely the 5 armies of the kings of the Amorites. The defeat is so complete that the kings flee. They've all gone out to watch the battle of their armies, assuming they'll get the victory. I mean, there are 5 of them combined. They assume they'll win easily, but their armies are completely defeated and routed, and so the 5 kings flee, and they hide in a cave at Makkedah. The cave is near to Makkedah, which is one of the Amorite cities in the south. Reading on. Now, when Joshua was told that the 5 kings had been found hiding in the cave of Makkedah, he said, "Well, roll some large rocks up to the mouth of the cave. Post some men there to guard it. In other words, we'll imprison them within the cave and we'll deal with them later. But don't stop pursuing your enemies. They're on the run, so keep pursuing them. Attack them from the rear. Do not let them reach their cities, for the Lord your God has given them into your hand." So now that they are running, you keep pursuing so that our victory will be complete. So Joshua and the Israelites defeated them completely. But a few survivors managed to reach their fortified cities. So the whole army then returned safely to Joshua at the camp at Makkedah, and no one uttered a word against the Israelites. So the armies are totally defeated, routed, in complete disarray. The Israelites capture or kill most of them, but a few make it back to their fortified cities. Remember, they all have fortified cities. They've come out of the cities to engage the Israelites in battle. Now they're defeated, they retreat to the cities. So the cities still have to be conquered. Joshua has not yet conquered the fortified cities, but the armies are defeated. So picking up the cities is going to be a much easier task now that the army is essentially demolished. Only a few survivors reach the cities again. But first, before you begin to take the cities one at a time, Joshua says we've got to deal with these kings. So Joshua says, open up the mouth of the cave, bring those 5 kings out to me. So they brought the 5 kings out of the cave, kings of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, and Eglon. These are not all the cities in the south, but they're the main ones, the largest ones, and they're the ones that have formed the coalition. Now, when they had brought these kings to Joshua, he summoned all the men of Israel, and he said to the army commanders who had come with him, "Come now and put your feet on the necks of these kings." So they came forward, they put their feet on their necks. This is a sign of total submission of the Amorites to the Israelites. When you put your foot on their neck, it's a sign that you have completely defeated them. So Joshua says, don't be afraid, don't be discouraged, be strong, be courageous. This is what the Lord would do to all the enemies you are going to fight. In other words, before the battle began, you had a coalition of 5 kings against you. The numbers look to be on their side, but the Lord has delivered them into your hands. The Lord has given you another astounding victory. You saw his miraculous intervention. You even saw how the sun stood still to give you a longer day to overcome the Amorite armies. So be courageous. This is what God will do to all the enemies who stand before you. There's still battles to be fought. The cities still have to be taken, and the army's defeated. The kings are captured, but you still got to take the cities. And then after that, you're going to have to turn your attention to the north. There's still much territory to conquer, but Joshua is saying to the people, look what God has done. The same God who delivered these Amorite kings into your hands, he will give all of your enemies into your hands. The victory is certain because the Lord is on our side. The Lord is the one who gives the victory. Verse 26, then Joshua put the kings to death. In other words, he executed them all. Again, as we've told you before, the punishment on these Amorites is harsh because their sin is so heinous. So the Amorite kings in the south are defeated. The land is open. Now we simply have to take the cities one at a time. We'll begin to look at that campaign tomorrow. There's still a southern campaign, but it's much easier now, for the army's already gone. Now you just have to take the cities one at a time, and that's what they'll proceed to do in the end of chapter 10. We'll start looking at that tomorrow. So join us next time for our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Joshua.